My name is Susan Summers, and today's episode of Tips and Tricks is going to focus on the arpeggios that you need to learn in order to make Etude number 24 substantially easier to play. And my plan is to make this the first of 3 videos, so the following 2 Fridays we'll do the same thing with the arpeggios in the other 2 etudes. So if arpeggios make you really nervous, then you'll want to tune in for those as well. So let's get started. All right, all that I've done here is I've highlighted the places where these arpeggios are. So these little pink boxes, everywhere that's highlighted with pink. So if you're a visual learner, this might be an easy way for you to kind of take stock of what arpeggios are, where the arpeggios are used. And I thought I would take just maybe like 30 seconds to explain that we're going to have 2 types of arpeggios. We're going to have the triad, which is probably what you've been practicing in band, and that just means that there are 3 notes repeated over and over again, depending on how many octaves you play. And then we also have the 7th arpeggio, which means that we're going to have 4 notes. So you can think of the triad as 1, 3, and 5 of the scale. The first note, the third note, the 5th note, and then the 7th, we add another 3rd on top of that, so it'd be 1, 3, 5, 7, and that's why we call it the 7th. So I just want to make sure that makes sense. So we're either going to have the triad arpeggios, which have 3 notes, or we'll have the 7th chord arpeggios, which have 4 notes. Then, just so you know, I'll be referring to the arpeggios with these words you see at the bottom, which refer to the quality: major, minor, dominant, half diminished, and diminished. I'm not going to take time to explain that today. If you're interested, you can find lots of information free online about that, or you could request a video, and I would be happy to do that in the future. But basically, they just sound different. They evoke different feelings, if you want to think of it that way, and the intervals are different sizes. So that's just a basic, very basic overview of arpeggios. Now, this next slide is the one where we're going to spend our time today. So I've got all of the arpeggios written out here, full range for the oboe. This is from the practice handout that I mention every week, and you can get that by scanning the QR code. And then over here on this other side, I've got a list of the different arpeggios, and underneath or next to, depending on which line we're looking at, has a list of the measures where those are featured. So those are the measures that were highlighted in the previous slide. So you can either get this information by looking at the highlighted slide, or you can use this and you can jot down. This is more specific, right? Because it's telling you which arpeggio is in which measure. So first we're going to start with tonic and dominant. Tonic means 1. Dominant means 5 in whatever key. So in F sharp minor, F sharp would be tonic, and C sharp would be dominant because that's the 5th note of the scale. And those are always the most prevalent arpeggios in whatever key you're playing, is the tonic and the dominant. So let's start with those. If you want to pause the video and go grab your oboe, we're going to play along together. We are going to be playing all quarter notes. I'm going to have the metronome on so we can play together more easily. Quarter note equals 80. And of course, when you're practicing by yourself, you can adjust that tempo to suit. There are some high notes in here. For instance, we're going to have a high F sharp here. If you haven't learned that note yet, feel free to just leave that off, and then you can just pop back in. So keep track of where you are, and then come back in when you can. Okay, so let's give this a try. I'll count off a measure of 4, and then let's play the tonic arpeggio. So we have F sharp, A, and C sharp over and over. 1, 2, 3. And then let's look at the dominant, which is right underneath it. So this is the 7th chord, so this one's going to have 4 notes repeated. So we're going to have C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, and B over and over again. And you should use forked E sharp so that you can get to the G sharp after that. So make sure that you use that, especially if you're someone who doesn't use that forked fingering a lot. This is a situation where you should definitely use that fingering. All right, so let's do the same thing playing this dominant 7th arpeggio. 1, 2, 3. And then it sounds like it wants to go back to 1. So I like to practice the tonic and then the dominant and then the tonic because it just sounds resolved after that. But for the sake of time, we're going to keep going. Okay, so let's move on. That might be maybe one day's practice. It's just those two. Or you could do one a day because we've got 7 of them, right? One every day. Let's go on to this A sharp diminished 7. So this little circle means diminished, and the circle with the slash means half diminished, just in case you've not seen that before. But I also have it written over here, written out the word. All right, so this is the 7th arpeggio, so we have 4 notes. We've got A sharp, C sharp, E, and G. And if your oboe will play low A sharp with the C sharp key, I would highly recommend doing that. It will make this first interval a lot easier. If your oboe doesn't do that, that's totally fine. All right, let's play that one together. 1, 2, 3. See, you can hear that sounds kind of ominous. Those diminished and half diminished ones sound like, you know, something bad is about to happen. Then we go to B minor. So this one's just a triad, so 3 notes, B, D, and F sharp over and over again. And again, if you want to leave the high F sharp off, feel free to do that. You can add that back in later whenever you feel comfortable. Here we go, B minor. 1, 2, 3. Then we get a nice friendly G major arpeggio. I'm sure you're all excited that that's probably one you recognize. So G major should sound pretty happy. Oh, I forgot to count you off. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3. Then we're back to more ominous sounding. So G sharp half diminished 7th. So 4 notes, G sharp, B, D, and F sharp. Let's give that one a try. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then last but not least is our E sharp diminished 7th. So 4 notes, E sharp, G sharp, B, and D. And again, when we get into this like middle register, you want to use the 4th fingering because we have E sharp to G sharp. So just keep that in mind. Okay, a measure for nothing. 1, 2, 3. And that's another one that really wants to resolve back to tonic, so you may want to play tonic after that. Okay, so if you have trouble with these, finger and say the note names. It's such a great way to practice, especially with the arpeggios. And especially the ones that have a note that maybe you're unfamiliar or uncomfortable with one of the note names, like E sharp. You probably say F more often than E sharp. So make sure that you're really thinking E sharp as its own thing instead of having to translate, oh yeah, that's F. Think E sharp. You can definitely vary the range. You don't have to do it full range like I've written. You can start with 1 octave. That would be a great start if you've not played a lot of these before, which I would suspect you haven't. So feel free to simplify, right? Of course, you can play with and without the metronome. We did with today just so we could all be together. And I had it on 80, so if that felt really fast, you can adjust appropriately down from there. Always pick a tempo that you don't feel like you're just barely like able to keep up with it. Go slower. Play a tempo that you can really feel comfortable and be aware of what's going on. And then when you play without the metronome, I would suggest that you practice with a drone to work on tuning. We didn't do that today. Maybe we can try that in the next couple of weeks so you can hear the difference. It's just a completely different feel. And my best tip is just to spend a little bit of time each day that you practice on these so that they get to become as familiar for you as your scales are. Right? Your scales are pretty easy. You've spent a lot of time on them most likely. So then when they pop up in your music, you can just play those parts. If we can play these arpeggios, then when they pop up in the music, we can play those parts. So that's particularly important. So just dedicate like 2 minutes to playing 1 arpeggio or 2 arpeggios each day, and you will start to notice progress from there. All right, guys, I will let you go. Please enjoy your weekend, and thank you so much for joining me again. And I'll see you next Friday with some more arpeggios. All right, bye.